Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Sarah for those of you that have not practiced with me, and I will be guiding you through your class here today. So today's class is a energizing flow. So in its name, it's talking about bringing some energy into our flow, into our practice, and hopefully some energy in return into the body. So it's a beautiful practice first thing in the morning to get the body going, get the blood pumping, a bit of energy into the body. But it's also quite a nice class to maybe do during the middle of the day if you feel like you need a pick-me-up, or maybe at the end of the day if you have, if you're looking for a bit more energy still in your day. So we're going to be working with some blocks as options. They're not necessities, you don't have to have them, you don't have to utilise them if you don't want to, but they're quite nice to have. We will be working towards half splits today. So they're quite good to have as a bit of support. So coming into a variation of half splits like this, you can always work with lowering down the blocks as well and making your way closer towards the ground if that's where your practice is. Of course, in half splits as well, if you're not quite finding that you're making your way all the way down to the earth as well, you can always come to find a variation of a modified half splits where you're keeping the foot down or you're lifting the foot. So just work within your range and your body capability. But also, being an energizing flow, I would recommend trying to come slightly outside of your comfort zone to an extent. Work within your parameters, but come to challenge yourself as well, because this is where we sometimes discover that our body can do far more than we imagine that it can. So when you are ready, we're going to start in a seat, just for a few minutes of breath practice to settle into class. So you might like to sit on a bolster, on a block, or maybe you're just sitting over the heels. So when you found your seat, your position, maybe come to close down the eyes or take a soft gaze. The hands can be on the body or away from the body. Palms can face up or down. And take a very subtle tuck of the chin towards the chest, creating length through the back of the neck. Bring your awareness to the sit bones, to the foundations beneath you. And bring your awareness to the spine. From the base of the spine as it travels all the way up to the neck and then into the skull, coming to the crown of the head. With ease, can you find length here? Not forcing the body into any position, but can you just find a subtle lift through the body to find a bit more length in the torso. And then very slowly start to bring your awareness to the breath. Not changing anything or forcing anything, just observing the breath as it flows in and out of the body. Staying with this observation. And then maybe noticing any subtle differences within the breath. Maybe noticing that the inhale or the exhale is longer than one or the other. Maybe there's a slight pause or there's no pause in between the inhale and exhale. Noting that we're not coming to judge or criticize, we're just simply observing the differences that occur within the breath. If there is any to notice at all. And then next we're going to come to practice our Samavritti breath, our even flow of breath. So we're going to work today with 2, 2, 2 and 2. So 2 seconds for an inhale, 2 seconds for a hold, 2 seconds for an exhale, 2 seconds for a hold. And then we're going to repeat that a few times. If that's too much for you, regress for a count of 1. Or if it's too little, increase maybe to a count of 3 or 4. But essentially we're going to work with 2 today. And yes, just know that you can regress or increase for your ability. We're going to empty the breath. And when you're ready, begin. Inhale, 2. Hold, 2. Exhale, 2. Hold, 2. 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 Pausing here. Allow the breath to come back to its natural rhythm. And come to pause for a moment. Notice any changes in the body that might arise, if any at all. And then very slowly start to blink the eyes open. Remove any props that you might be seated on. You might have anchored underneath a knee maybe. And then come to extend the feet in front of you. Knees are bent. Take the hands behind you to begin with actually. Slight lean back and then take the feet so they're as wide as the edges of your mat. Knees are bent. And then slowly start to take your knees over towards the right side for a windshield wiper. Just through the legs and then taking them over towards the left side. Take 2 more rounds moving with your breath, your pace. Maybe for you that is slow, maybe you're moving a little bit faster. Next time you come over towards the right side this time, bring the hands in towards the body. So coming up to sit on towards the hip. So we're going to draw that right foot in towards the groin and we're going to draw that left heel in towards the glute. So we've got our legs kind of staggered like a deer pose here. And the hands might be resting just out in front of you. And then very slowly and gently start to take the hands over towards the left foot, left hip. So we're taking a twist. Maybe that left hand comes back behind you and the right hand rests on the left thigh. Subtle tuck of the chin in towards the chest. Can you try and maintain that right knee so that it's pressing down into the ground? Beautiful. Come back through center, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe a little rebound twist over towards the right side. Coming back through your center, place the hands back to the outside edges of the hips and then draw the legs back into those windshield wipers positioning. Take the knees now over towards the left side and then drawing yourself upright. Draw that left heel in towards the groin and that right heel in towards the glute. So we're just facing over towards the left side this time. And then slowly start to take the hands back behind you. Maybe that right hand reaches behind the right glute. And this left hand might come onto the left thigh. Gaze might be over the shoulder and then a subtle tuck of the chin in towards the chest. It's again allowing that left knee to be heavy down to the earth. And then drawing everything back through center. Place the hands back behind you, lean back, extend the legs. And And then bring the feet so they're about hip width apart. Knees are bent. We've got the hands back behind us. The fingertips can face back, they can face outwards, they can face towards you. Just working with your shoulder anatomy. And you might like to walk the feet a bit further away from you to begin with. We're going to come to take the right ankle across the top of the left thigh. So we're coming into this kind of figure 4 pose. If you notice that you're not feeling much sensation in the outer right hip, slowly start to walk that left foot closer towards the body till you feel somewhat of a sensation that feels okay. We're looking for sensation, but we're not looking for any pain or discomfort. So we're not being forceful here. And then maybe you're taking some rocks side to side. And we're just, with the hip, we're actually pushing that right knee forward towards the front of the mat. So there is a sense of engagement through that hip. It's helping the knee to drive to the front of the stool. And then come back through center and pause. Keeping that engagement, pushing the knee towards the front of the mat through the hip. Really firm down through the left foot, the left big toe, left little toe and the heel of the foot. Take your gaze slightly forward and then pushing into the hands, slightly lift the hips up off the mat. That might be 1 centimetre, maybe 1 inch, maybe higher. And then lower back down. And we're going to take that 2 more times. Once again moving with your range, so you can either lift for 1 centimetre or for 2, or maybe you're lifting the hips all the way up into a somewhat reverse tabletop. Lowering back down. And then taking that 1 more time, lifting the hips up and then lowering back down. Unraveling the legs, maybe taking a few moments through windshield wipers, either side. And then we're going to come over to the other side, so bring the feet back through centre, so they're about hip width apart. Walk the feet away from you to give yourself that space first. And then taking the left ankle across the top of the left thigh. Draw the left knee towards the front of the room, front of the mat. And then slowly walk that right foot back in towards the body slightly if that is good for you. Drawing that left knee, towards the front of the mat still. Find that sense of opening through the hip. Maybe you're taking some rocks side to side here. And then once again, bring your awareness to that right foot. Really think about the big toe, the little toe, the heel of the foot, grounding down into the foot. Flexing through that left foot, driving the left knee towards the front of the room, pushing down into the hands, lift the hips up. So that could be just a subtle lift of the hips, and then lower back down. Taking that 2 more times, moving with your breath, your pace. Lifting the hips up, maybe the hips come up a bit higher this time. And then lower back down. And take that 1 more time, really pushing down, driving down into that foot that is the right foot, and then lower back down. Beautiful. Come to unravel the legs. Maybe you're taking some windshield wipers again here. And when you feel ready, making your way into a tabletop pose. So bringing the shoulders, hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips or thereabouts. Gaze is down towards the earth. On your next breath, lower the stomach down towards the earth, tailbone lifts up towards the sky, gaze slightly forward for cow pose. And then slowly start to, in your cow pose, send the hips back towards the heels, coming into a variation of child's pose. Gaze stays forward. And then slowly draw the chin in towards the chest, gaze comes down towards the earth, forehead might touch child's pose, balasana. And then slowly pushing into the hands, come up to rise, tuck the chin in towards the chest, dome through the upper back, tuck the tailbone under, cat pose. And then we're going to move between these 2 motions here, finding cow pose. Beautiful. Going back to child's pose, gaze stays forward. Chin comes into chest, head comes down, child's pose. Coming up, rising through cat pose. Finding cow pose. Draw the hips back towards the heels. Child's pose. Coming up, finding cat pose. And then coming back through neutral, pause for a breath here. Bring the knees to touch or thereabouts and send the right leg back behind you. Toes are tucked. Just thinking about finding that length first through that leg. So really tuck through the toes but send the heel energetically to the back of the room. Shoulders slightly ahead of the wrist. And then start to take some rocks backwards and forwards. Create space through the back of that leg. And then on your next breath, come to hover that right leg. So it's roughly in line with the hip. Lower it if that's too much for you. You can come to point or flex the foot. Just work with what feels more engaging for you. And then on your next breath, we're going to take that foot to the other side of the mat, to the left side of the mat. So it's crossing over to the left side. And then we're going to sweep it up and round like we're creating a rainbow, bringing it all the way to the outside edge of the right mat. And then we're taking it up and round again, creating a rainbow, taking it over towards the left side. Going to take that 2 more times. Maybe the gaze follows. Coming up and over towards the left. Up and over towards the right. Up and over towards the left. Up and over towards the right. Bring that leg back through center. Bend through the knee as if you're going to stamp on the ceiling, so flex through that foot. And then on your next breath, we're going to take that foot and we're going to step it ever so gently outside of the right hand. Beautiful. And then come to kickstand that left foot over towards the right side. You might like the block here. So we're going to bring that to the inside of the right foot, or the hand is down towards the earth. And then as we do so, we're going to peel this left hand up towards the sky or towards the hip for a variation of side angle. Pausing for a breath here. Then we're going to circle the arm up and round. So from this hand up, we're going to drag it to the back of the room, circle it across the body, up and round. I'm taking a few circles through the shoulders. Maybe even pushing that right arm in towards the right inside thigh. A bit of extra engagement in the body. Beautiful. And then that hand's going to come straight back up towards the ceiling this time. Pause for a breath. Bring the hand towards the hip, left hand to left hip. And this front foot is going to stay where it is, and maybe you're going to rock backwards and forwards. Just moving into the hip, the hand can stay on the block, or you can bring it down towards the earth. So you might just be bending and extending ever so slightly, or maybe you're coming to straighten the legs, sending the hips all the way to the back of the mat. Just moving with your anatomy and with what feels comfortable here for you. Lovely. And then bring that left hand down, take everything back through center. Sweep the right foot back to the back of the mat. Pause for a breath. Just notice what there is to notice here, if there's any changes at all versus right to left. Beautiful. Knees to touch if they're not already. Send the left leg back behind you. Toes are tucked. Really thinking about stretching that heel to the back of the room, finding that length through the back of the leg. And some rocks backwards and forwards. And then come to find stillness. Come to hover the left leg so it's roughly in line with the hip. Pointing or flexing. And then slowly take that foot over towards the right side, outside the right edge of the mat. Sweeping it up and over like a rainbow, bring it over towards the left. 2 more times, sweeping it up and round over towards the right. Maybe the gaze follows, up and round over towards the left. Big rainbow sweep up and round over towards the right. Big sweep up and round over towards the left. Bring it back through center, coming to hover still. And then flex through the foot, bend through the knee, as if you're going to stamp on top of the ceiling. And then very slowly circling the hip round, bringing that left foot to the outside edge of the left hand. Beautiful. Kickstand that bottom of the right foot over towards the left side now. either bringing that block or hand towards the earth. We've got the left hand on the inside of the left foot. Send the right hand up towards the sky or to the hip. Pause for a breath. If the hand's not extended, send that right hand up towards the sky and then reach the fingers to the back of the room, sweep it across the body up and round. Taking some circles out through the shoulders. Using the breath. Taking one more round. And that hand comes up towards the sky. Bring the hand to the hip. And then maybe you're taking some rocks backwards and forwards here. And once you've built up that momentum, maybe you're getting a bit straighter in towards the leg, drawing the hip back towards the back of the mat. Beautiful. Bringing that right hand down towards the mat, left hand down if it's not already. Ground down through both hands before then coming to sweep that left leg back behind you. Pause for a breath. Come to tuck the toes under, pushing down into the hands, really spread through the fingertips here. And then lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Take a moment to readjust the hands, readjust the feet. Maybe a nice generous bend in the knees. You might be taking some little walks out, bending through one leg and extending the other. And then finding some stillness. On your next breath, rippling your way forward into plank pose. We're not going to be here for long. We're going to bend the knees, send the hips up and back, downward facing dog again. And then slowly walk the hands into the back of the mat. Coming to find ragdoll at the back of the mat. Come up ever so slightly so that the fingertips are off of the mat. Allow the body to drape over the thighs, head and neck to hang heavy. And then fold back down again. Bring your awareness to the feet, to the big toe, the little toe, the heel of the feet. Maybe even lift the toes and spread the toes before planting them back down. Really feel that connection to the ground, to the energy, to the weight in the feet. And slowly come up to rise. Circle the arms nice and wide. Maybe the gaze follows, the palms might meet, and draw them down through heart center. Palms face the front of the mat for Tadasana. Pause for a breath. Beautiful. Circle the arms wide, draw the hands down through heart center, come to fold over the top of the thighs. Come to find your halfway lift, hands to shins, flat back, gaze down towards the mat. Folding forward, slowly start to walk the hands out, finding downward facing dog. Beautiful. Walk the hands to the back of the mat one more time. Find ragdoll. Allow the hands to hang nice and heavy. Maybe take some sways side to side. Fold back down. Root into the feet. Come up to rise. Circle the arms wide. Draw the hands through heart center. Tadasana. Palms face forward. Circle the arms up wide. Draw the hands through heart center. Come to bend and fold. Beautiful. Find your halfway lift, hands to shins, flat back. On the breath, folding forward, padding your way out, finding downward facing dog. Pause for a breath. Walk the hands into the back of the mat again. Finding that ragdoll pose one more time. Allow the hands to hang heavy, neck and head to hang heavy. Fold forward. Hands to the earth or maybe to blocks. And then rooting down into the feet, come up to rise, circle the arms wide. Draw the hands above the head, palms come through heart center. Palms face forward or thereabouts, Tadasana. Pause for a breath. And then from where you are in your Tadasana, take a gaze down to the feet. Maybe lift up the toes, spread the toes and plant them back down. And just notice the position of where they've come to stand. Maybe the toes are facing outwards or inwards. Maybe they're facing forwards. Maybe they're a hip width apart, or maybe they're a bit more narrow. And then really think about sending the energy down from the legs. So maybe a slight tuck of the tailbone under here. Really firming down into the heel of the foot, into the blade edge of both feet, into the big toe, the second toe, the third toe, the fourth toe and the little toe on both feet. And feeling the pads of the feet as they connect to the earth. And then I want you to think about magnetically drawing the feet apart. So you want to rip the mat in half almost. And just notice what that does the minute you try to take the feet away from one another without moving them. And then soften. And then creating the same thing again. So really taking the feet away from towards one another. So as if you want to tear the mat in half. As if there's a magnet expelling them away from towards away from one another, not towards, away. And then soften. And then we're going to reverse that motion. So now imagine there's a magnet in between your feet, drawing them towards one another. So squeeze in, feeling that tone in between the legs. So the feet are coming towards one another. And then soften. Taking that again, drawing the feet in towards one another but not physically moving them. Beautiful, and then soften. Maybe bend through the knees and give yourself a little bounce and shake on the spot. Beautiful. Send the hands up towards the sky. Palms are facing towards one another, fingertips face up. Then on the next breath, a nice soft bend in the knees. On the breath, just flow everything out, coming down, forward fold swing. Coming up to rise. Taking two more like that. Swinging the arms back behind you, body comes over towards the thighs. Coming up to rise. And then sweeping everything back down again. Forward fold. Coming up to rise. And then hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra. Pause for a breath. Beautiful. And then when you feel ready, coming to fold your way all the way down, walking your way out into plank. So you can either have the knees up or down here. And then just noticing your plank. So coming to notice how you set up and then making some small adjustments. Can you really spread through the fingers here? Really plant into the knuckle parts of the palm. Send the heels to the back of the room and shoulders slightly ahead of the wrists. Gaze slightly ahead, not up, but just at the top of the mat. Slight tuck of the tailbone under, dome through the upper back. Push the mat away from you. And then add in on here. Same as we just did with the feet. Can you imagine that you want to rip the mat in half with the hands? So you're really energetically sending the hands to the outside edges of the mat. And then bring the feet in, do the same. Beautiful. Pause and soften. Maybe lower the knees down for a moment if they're not already. Take a full round of breath. Coming back into your plank pose. Taking those cues, diving through the upper back, spread the fingers, heels to the back of the room. And now think about drawing the hands to feet, feet to hands. Really switching on the middle part of the body, the front chain of the body. Beautiful. Pausing, lowering down the knees, take a round of breath. And then coming to find that plank pose one more time. Pausing for a breath here. Lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Take a full round of breath, full inhale, full exhale. Slowly travelling your way towards the top of the mat, finding forward fold. That could be hands to the blocks, hands to the earth, or maybe either elbows to thigh. And then on your next breath from your forward fold, come to sweep the hands back behind you, sweep them forward, finding chair pose. So hands can be above the head, or they can even be at heart center or cactus. So notice where the weight is distributed. Maybe send the weight into the heels a bit more. Maybe come a little bit lower into your chair. And then come up to stand. Hands beside the body, Tadasana. Beautiful. Send the hands above the head, palms face forward towards one another. Fingertips really reach high. Send the hips back, find chair pose. If that's too much for the shoulders, bring the hands to heart center. Pause for a breath. Come up to stand, hands through heart center. Hands beside the body, Tadasana. Beautiful. Send the hands above the sky, finding chair pose one more time. And then draw the hands to heart center. Think about bringing the weight more in towards that left foot. And we're going to start to step this right foot back behind us. So we're in this modified crescent lunge now. Readjust the feet if you need to. Find that balance, that stability. Think about bending through that back leg to create a bit of space if you're quite tight in the front hip. We're leaning slightly ahead of ourselves here, so we're leaning over the front left thigh. Beautiful. And then you can bring the hands above the head or they can stay at heart center. And then on your next breath, with the hands above the head, we're going to draw them into heart center. As we do so, we're going to bring this right foot in halfway. And we're going to step it back. Hands go above the head. As we draw the hands back in, we'll step it in halfway again. Hands above the head, step the foot back. Hands to heart center, step the foot halfway in. Hands above the head, step the foot back. Beautiful. So we should start to feel some energy into that left leg now. And then we're going to bring the hands to heart center, come up to crescent lunge. So we're stacking the body now on top of the hips, still bending through that front left leg. You can keep that back leg straight or you can keep a bend in the knee for space. Beautiful. And then on the next breath, if you found your stability, your buoyancy here, we're going to come to lower that right knee down towards the earth. It might touch, and then we're going to come straight back up, still keeping that bend in that front knee. Lowering the back knee down towards the earth, maybe a touch, and as we come back up. One more round, lowering, maybe a tiny little touch, a little kiss to the ground before coming back up. Beautiful. And then on your next breath, we're going to lower that back leg down towards the back knee, down towards the earth. And then send the hands back up towards the sky. So we're in this low lunge variation with the back toes tucked. Pause for a breath. And then bring your hands either to the blocks or maybe down towards the earth. We're going to lift that back knee and we're now in our runner's lunge. Beautiful. So taking some rocks front to back like we did earlier in the beginning of our practice. And either with your hands towards the blocks or towards the earth, we're going to then slowly start to lift this back leg, coming to find half splits. So the toes are facing down towards the earth, heel is reaching to the back of the room. You can have a little tiny micro bend in this standing leg for buoyancy. Really thinking about driving that heel to the back of that room in the hovering leg for energy and strength through the leg. Bending through that left leg now. And from your standing split, slowly start to bend into that standing leg, that left leg. Draw the right knee towards the chest as we slowly come up to rise for one-legged mountain. Hands can come above the head or to heart center. We're bringing that right knee roughly in line with the right hip, but it can sit lower. Just know that if you're wobbling or falling, this is perfectly natural. We're working within parameters of our body that we don't usually do on a daily basis. And then come to bring your hands to cactus. So arms, shoulder blades are drawing back towards one another, elbows are down towards the earth, spread through the fingers. And with this right hovering leg, we're going to take the right knee out towards the right side, so the heel of the right foot's coming into the midline of the body. And then alternating, changing this over, so we're bringing the right knee into the midline of the body, and the right heel is going out towards the right edge of the mat. Come back through center, hands to heart center, come to bring the right foot down to meet the left. Whew. And give that leg a little shimmy and a shake if it's feeling a little bit shaky. Pause for a breath. Beautiful. And then come to sweep the hands behind you, bend through the knees, sink the hips down, chair pose. Pause for a breath. Hands to heart center, come up to stand. Hands above the head, sink the hips, bend the knees, come to find chair pose. Gaze maybe down to the feet, and then come to gaze forward. Hands to heart center, come up to rise, come up to stand. Beautiful. One more time, sweep the hands back behind you, bring them above the head or to heart center, bend into the knees, sink the hips, chair pose. Hands to heart center, start to bring the weight into that right foot, spreading through the toes, finding that distribution of weight. And then take that left leg back behind you for a variation of crescent lunge. So we're still leaning over that front right thigh. Draw the shoulder blades towards one another to open up through the chest so we're not rounding and collapsing forward. There's a long line coming from the heel to the crown of the head. Beautiful. Send the hands above the head, or keep them at heart center if that feels better for you. Next, as you draw them into heart center, bring that left foot in halfway. Step it back, hands above the head. Hands to heart center, step the foot in halfway. Hands above the head, foot reaches back. Hands to heart center, bring the foot in halfway. And then step the foot back, hands above the head. Come up to bring the body in line with the torso. The body in line with the torso in line with the hips. So we're in this crescent lunge. That front knee is still bent. Hands above the head or at heart center if the shoulders are fatiguing. Maybe bend in that back knee to create space through the hip if it's too tight. Beautiful. Hands above the head if they're not already, if that feels good for you. And then come to bend into that left foot, that left knee. Left knee might graze the mat as we come back up. Lifting and lowering. Lowering back down to the ground. Maybe the knee kisses the ground before shooting back up. One more time. Lowering the left knee down. Maybe it kisses the ground before coming back up. Pause for a breath. And this time lowering the knee all the way down to the ground. Hands above the head or at heart center for low lunge with the feet tucked. Toes tucked. Not the feet, it's toes. The toes are connected to the feet. Beautiful. Bringing the hands to frame that right foot. Tuck the back toes under if they're not still tucked, and lift that back knee. Maybe the hands are to the blocks or they're towards the earth. And then slowly start to bring your weight in towards that right front foot. Come to lift the back leg, finding half splits on the other side. Really flexing through the toes, drive the heel to the back of the room. Little micro bend in that right knee. Maybe the gaze comes to the back of the room. Maybe you check out the toes, check out the feet. Maybe you lift a bit higher. And then bending into that standing leg, drawing the left knee in towards the chest, slowly come up to rise for one-legged mountain. Moving slowly and mindfully. Really firming down into that standing leg. Flexing the left foot, maybe to help with that engagement. And then come to cactus the arms. Draw the shoulder blades towards one another. Take the left knee out towards the left side, the left heel comes into the midline of the body. And then switching that over, left knee in towards the midline of the body, left heel to the outside edge of the mat. Back through centre. Hands to heart centre. Come to bring the left foot to meet the right. Pause for a breath. Beautiful. Come to sweep the hands above the head. Come to fold forward. Find your halfway lift. Hands to the shins or to blocks. Gaze down. Come to fold forward. Step the right foot back and then the left foot. Once you are here in your plank, either lower knees down or up. And then everybody come to lower the knees down. Bring the chin down and then the chest down and slithering your way into cobra. Send the feet back behind you, push into the tops of the feet. Draw the hands as if they're coming to the back of the mat. Gaze slightly forward. Chin, head down towards the mat. Come to push into the hands, push up into the knees, tabletop. Draw the hips all the way back. Balasana, child's pose. Pause for a breath here. Beautiful. And when you've done your final round of your breath, come up to find a seat. So having your blocks close by, if you're using them. If you're not, we're going to work with reverse tabletop and a couple of swing throughs, so with the hips. So if you are working with those swing throughs, have the blocks so that they're outside of the hips, so that when we come through, you've got that space to bring them through. If you're not, the hands will sit outside of the hips still. Beautiful. So we're coming to sit on the sit bones, knees are bent, feet are planted on towards the earth. Taking them about hip width, bring the hands, fingertips facing forwards, so they're just outside of the hips. And then really push down into the hands. As we do so, you might notice the hips lift. Once they lift, come to send the hips up towards the sky for reverse tabletop. If you notice you've not got that space, adjust the feet. And then lower back down. Make any adjustments that you might need to before we come to do a few rounds of reverse tabletop. So pushing down into the feet, into the hands, come up to lift the hips. Slight tuck of the tailbone under, gaze might be forward or up, and then lower back down. Next time we come up, I'd like you to imagine you've got a block in between your thighs, or if you have a spare block, maybe even put one there. To keep that engagement through the legs, so pushing into the big toe, the little toe, the heel of the foot, into the hands, come up to lift the hips up. Keeping that engagement in the legs, drawing into the midline. And this time as we come to lower down, we're not going to send the hips down to the ground, we're going to sweep them back behind us, and we're doming through the upper back. Maybe the chin comes slightly in towards the chest as we hover the hips. Bend through the knees and then plant the glutes back on towards the ground. I'm going to take that one more time. So when you feel ready, find your reverse tabletop to begin with. And then from here, we're going to slowly lower the hips down towards the ground. They're not going to touch, they're going to sweep to the back of the mat, to the back of the room. Really push into the hands, dome through the upper back. Thinking cat pose. And then bend the knees, lower the hips back down. Beautiful. Circle out through the wrists. And then when you feel ready, we're going to make our way into Baddha Konasana. So going to make a diamond feet with a diamond feet. Can't talk today. A diamond shape with the feet. So we're bringing the soles of the feet to touch. The knees are coming out wide. If, like me, you notice that the knees just hang in mid-air and it's not always very comfortable through the hips, you can invite in some blocks underneath to support. But if you want to create a little bit more of sensation and it feels okay, maybe you're working without the blocks. And then come to find a nice long spine. Maybe the hands are gently resting on the ankles or the calves. And then you can either stay here or you can slowly start to walk your way forward. Coming to find a forward fold version of butterfly pose. So thinking more about bringing the belly button towards the ground as opposed to the chest. Maybe there's a gentle tuck of the chin in towards the chest here. I'm going to take a few rounds of breath here. Maybe you bring your awareness to that breath as we began our practice, taking a full inhale and full exhale. Not changing anything or forcing anything in the breath, just observing each round as they come. Beautiful. And then when you feel ready, walking the hands back in. If you've taken that forward fold, extend one leg and then the other leg long. Bring the hands back behind you, fingertips face the body, maybe a slight lean back. Maybe you're taking some windshield wipers. And then we're going to close today's class with a round of breath. A few rounds of breath, so come to find your seat, whether that's on a prop or maybe you're just seated, or if you want to, obviously there's always options, feel free to lay down. But from wherever you are, come to close down the eyes or take that soft gaze. Tune into the body. Make any micro adjustments where necessary. Finding a bit more length. Taking a nice big inhale through the nose. And then maybe sigh out through the mouth. If that felt good, maybe taking 2 more rounds like so. And then slowly start to bring your awareness to the breath if it's not focused on the breath already. Noticing the breath as it flows in and out of the body. And then slowly bring your awareness to maybe where you feel the breath in the body. Maybe that's as it comes in and out of the nostrils. Maybe you notice it in the chest or the stomach. Or maybe you feel it as it expands the rib cage outwards and draws everything back inwards. And just noticing the subtle changes that the breath offers to the body in terms of its movement. And where that comes from for you. There is no right. There's only your observation, your curiosity. And then wherever the breath is in with the body, maybe bringing awareness to that space and visualizing a colour in this space. It can be any colour. Just select any colour that comes to your mind's eye straight away. And place that colour in your mind's eye in that space of where the breath is for you in the body. Noticing that breath expanding and getting bigger as the breath comes in. Noticing the colour draw everything inwards and get smaller as the breath comes out. And just focus in your mind in that space on that colour with the ebb and flow of breath. And very gently letting go of any visualization, any breath awareness. And bring your awareness to the space that you're in, to any sounds that might arise, maybe to the temperature of the room. Very gently, when you're ready, come to open up your eyes. Bring the hands to heart center and come to close your practice. It was a true honour to guide you here today. I hope that you found some energy within your day from this class. I'd love to hear how you got on, what your experiences were. Please feel free to put anything down in the comments. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you again on the mat. Thank you, bye.